Hello and welcome. My name is Arity Green and this is Wise Woman Television, and today I am bringing you a pick a card reading on the secrets of your subconscious. Who are you really? So this is going to be diving into the deeper layers of you, maybe the parts of you you don't know, since I'm saying the subconscious, or parts of you that you keep hidden away or suppressed inside, the parts of you that may be asking for nurturing, expression, for healing, to have a say. But these are also the parts of us, more often than not, that are driving the choices and decisions in our lives. These are the impulses and instincts to turn away, to look back, to settle, to not do the thing that we say we want to do. So more often than not, these subconscious influences are the things that are holding us back. So that's why I wanted to do a reading on this today, to support you, to bring the light of your awareness onto these parts of yourself so that you can get everyone on the same stage, working toward the same outcome, right? We could call that alignment or integration. So I want to thank you for being here, being a part of this community. I encourage you to be a part of this family, to like, to subscribe if you enjoy this reading. I do also want to let you know I offer both personal readings as well as coaching programs to support you in your life, in your work, and on your spiritual path. I have an incredible program out right now called Spirit Woman, if you're watching this in January 2021 when I am filming. And it is a year-long community to nurture your true nature and your highest potential. Yearlong coaching community, rather. So if you are curious about that program, you can check out the details below and visit aritygreen.com/spiritwoman. So enough about all of that. Let's go ahead and get started. So I will begin by placing up a picture of your 4 card pile choices today. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Card pile 1, we're talking about the layers of your subconscious. All right, so the first thing is, it seems like you might not always be able to see things from a higher perspective or a more unlimited perspective, that you might oftentimes be seeing through filters of the past or through the limitations and stories of the past. So if you experienced a limited, quote unquote, we'll say limited childhood in some way, maybe it was impoverished emotionally or materially, or perhaps you had a lot of hurts and disappointments, or perhaps you had parents that didn't meet all of your needs, or caregivers or authority figures who didn't meet your needs, whatever it might have been. I feel like also there's this perspective of, there might even be a flavor of victimhood in there, like assuming that, everyone's always out to get you, or no one ever does you right, or no one ever does enough, that you have to do it all. I'm getting some of that energy too. Of course, not all of these energies will land for you, so you have to apply what I share here through the energy of the cards into your particular life circumstances and conditions. But ultimately, you've so far, it feels like, been unable to see, at least for longer periods of time, through the truth of you, right? Through seeing clearly, through seeing with a wider, grander perspective, seeing with the eyes of your soul, seeing it with a greater spiritual perspective that really doesn't place a lot of judgments and evaluations. It doesn't have this filter that it sees through in terms of like, this is right and this is wrong and this person did this and this person did that and it never works out because they did this. Like, that's just not how our soul sees things. And there's no judgment here, right? And that's actually the point, is supporting yourself to lift that judgment so you can see clearly. So beyond the judgments that you might have about life, or the ways that you've been done wrong, or all the ways that people haven't shown up for you, that you've always been the good guy, and the underdog, the more you can sort of lift these judgments and evaluations, and you can even visualize this. And I actually have an exercise in my book. So this exercise in my book, Ready, Set, Worthy, Rituals to Claim Your Worth, Wealth, and Work in the World. There's this ritual, or this practice and visualization, let me change up the scenery here, that guides you through a visualization of sitting there and imagining all the judgments about a particular thing. In this case, in the book, it's talking about oneself. But it could be judgments about anything, about life, about other people. But imagining a veil, in this case, over their head, or life, or whatever it is, where you have all these judgments, and you might not even be aware that you had all these judgments. This reading might be informing you that of the first time, so this visualization could be more difficult. Maybe return to this later. But for those of you this does resonate for, you can give it a try, where you imagine this veil over the other person or the thing or life or God that you're judging. You see all of your different judgments written all over this veil. They never did enough for me. They never showed up for me. I always had to do this and I always had to do that. I never get treated well and it doesn't ever turn out right for me. Whatever your particular flavor of that series of judgments is, those old stories. So put all the judgments on there, like an exhaustive list. You want to be really comprehensive, put them all on there. And then I want to see yourself lifting that veil and releasing it, surrendering it over to God, Great Spirit, higher power, universe, however you label it. And watch how that changes things. Take notice of the different feelings that you have, or maybe even your awareness, how it shifts, but you're able to see how you've colored all of life or this person or your relationships or whatever with your judgments, assessments, and evaluations that were often based in pain or hurt or wounding from the past that aren't really relevant. Maybe they were at the time, right? But that's since gone, and the people who are watching are empowered adults. So you get to decide if it continues to play a role in your life or not. But more often than not, if we allow those judgments to continue to play out in our lives, especially unknown and unaccounted for, they will continue to create the same old stories and create the same old relationships. And even if we have the opportunity to experience better or best, we're going to color it with our same perception, those same old glasses, the same old stories. So becoming aware of these judgments is paramount to you being able to move forward. There's this guidance, this nudge from your soul to break through these old stories, these old narrations, that were carried on from the past and may have been relevant when you were younger, but no longer are. That way you can break through this and be able to experience a life that is more fulfilling for you, and not just being able to experience greater outcomes, but being able to actually see them clearly and receive them without all of your judgments that are really putting you at a distance between being able to receive in life. So let's move on here. The layers of your subconscious, or the secrets of your subconscious. Okay, so again, I feel like, you might have these, it's like, if you're able to find more clarity, if you're able to find the ability to see more clearly, and you will be able to, if you continue that exercise regularly, it's going to support you to see with the lens of pure awareness, or a clean filter, or a clean vision, help you to see 20/20, we could say, such that you'll be able to experience more of whatever it is that you want to that you desire. Not only that, right, you're going to be able to position yourself to where you're able to manifest more of what you want. It's like that manifestation is possible, but it's more possible, like the likelihood is higher when you aren't sort of condemning and judging and bringing everything to the ground that comes your way. It's going to be very difficult for life to deliver when it's never good enough. So it's like, I'm seeing like a waiter at a party, and he comes up to, let's just say, a man, and he's well dressed and has some high standards for himself and life and whatever. And in some ways this could be good, right? But for you guys, for your secrets of the subconscious, it's becoming aware of your judgments and evaluations and filters and old stories that are preventing you from seeing clearly and honoring your true, authentic, limitless self. And so you see in this party drama that I'm visualizing, and this waiter comes up with one kind of food, the guy declines. Another kind of food, still declines, on and on and on and on. And what do you know? It's been 3 to 4 hours of this beautiful, extravagant party that could have been a lot of fun, could have been really engaging, could have been lively and enjoyable. And instead, this person declined everyone and everything because nothing was ever good enough, because it just kept judging everything. Okay? And it doesn't mean this person in the ball or at this party or whatever didn't have good reason to have those judgments and filters. It doesn't mean that. Perhaps this person was abused. Perhaps this person hasn't had great experiences in intimacy or relationships or connections. Perhaps this person can't trust people because people have taken from them primarily in their relationships. They haven't been given a lot to. So all those stories can be true. And yet if this person continues to show up and decline everyone and everything and say, oh, not good enough, oh, not good enough, oh, not good enough, it's never going to find true fulfillment or happiness. It's just not even possible. Okay? Because even when the great, like let's just say in this example, their perfect partner shows up, or the most delicious food they could ever enjoy, they just don't know it yet, approaches them, they're still going to find a judgment and they're going to decline. So you have to be clear about what is true. Are you deciding that it's not true, even though it might be true? Do you know what I mean? Maybe there is someone in your life, or maybe there will be experiences that could be fulfilling, right? That could really serve you and support you. And yet you place a judgment on them and decide that, oh, never mind, it's not going to work, or you don't like it, or they're not good enough, simply because of the stories from the past. So it's really getting clear on, is this your projection or is this a reality? And then the guidance here, of course, is continuing to be able to find clarity within yourself, peace within yourself, clearing out the old filters, clearing out the old judgments, and getting the exercise of, and I have been giving you guys a lot of exercises, card pile 1. And I'm talking all over myself today. I don't know. It's just a thing. I did a reading earlier, and like the whole time that's what I was doing. So I don't know what it is, but bear with me. So the exercise is this. I want you to take a look at a person, place, thing, or life itself, God, universe, great spirit, whatever, that you tend to judge pretty harshly. You may not even know that, right? So up until now, you might not have been aware that this wasn't a reality. You might have thought, oh, this is all real. You built this whole reality around these judgments in order to safeguard yourself and protect yourself from intimacy, from pain, ultimately. And so you don't even realize. So I might be telling you this for the first time, and so you might wait and return to this, just like the other exercise. But if you're ready, you're going to take that thing that you tend to judge. Maybe it's other people, maybe it's other things, maybe it's other opportunities, whatever it is, whatever's showing up for that dude at the party. And you're going to write a list of all the judgments about that person, place, or thing. I want you to write a list about all the judgments. The other thing that's coming through, if you've never done it, is The Work by Byron Katie. I can't say I'm a huge fan of her work. I've heard some stories that aren't exactly favorable. With that said, I do find that that exercise has been helpful in my past when I was unable to see projection and judgment for what it was. That always supported me to be able to see other potentials, possibilities, other truths, other perspectives. So if you're finding it incredibly difficult as you sort of navigate this subconscious quote unquote block, I would return to that, or at least look into and explore that to see if that might support you as well. So for now, you're going to write a list of all of your judgments about this person. And you're just going to clear them all out. That's all you're doing, is you're writing a list of everything, all of your anger and rage and upset and annoyances and frustrations and disappointments, and you effed this up and you never showed up and you didn't do this and you didn't do that, and until you're through, until you're completely clear. You found that clarity, you found that inner peace, you've cleaned the slate, you've washed everything clean. I want you to go for as long as you need to. You might write 100 things. You might write 200 things. Some of y'all will write 1,000. If you need to spend 3-4 hours in this, do it. Write it all down. Fill up that notebook. Fill up that notebook. Fill up that notebook. When you finally feel like it's all gone, it's all released, you've cleared it all, you put it all on paper, then I want you to sit there in that space of clarity, in that space of serenity, in that space of having emptied out your bowels. You've emptied out your guts on this page. And now you're going to sit here, you're going to turn the page, because I want you to have a clean page for this. Then the second list you're going to write is, I want you to write about that person, place, thing, life, God, whatever, with clean awareness, with pure awareness. What comes through here? It probably isn't going to come from the mind. You've now emptied yourself out. You've cleared out the projections, the stories, the old narrations. From a place of utmost clarity and clean discernment, I want your awareness, your intuition, your instinct, whatever it is your soul might have to offer, right? Your true authentic self with an unlimited perspective that doesn't see anything as right or wrong or good or bad or up or down or whatever. What comes up through you about this person? Now, in this list, you might find that you're able to see their strengths more clearly. You might find that you're able to muster up and even generate feelings of unconditional love, appreciation, gratitude for this person, place, or thing. You don't have to. Some of you might be looking at someone who may be unsafe or harmful or toxic or abusive. These things can still be written down. If that's still relevant after you've cleared out all the energy, then you know what? Now you know what's true. And that's the whole point for you, card pile 1, is being able to find the line of truth, that line in the sand. What's real? What's fantasy? What's real? What's projection? What's truth? What's illusion? What's yours? What's theirs? All right. So you're going to just see what comes up without the judgments, the stories, the narrations, all that stuff. Because now you're becoming aware of and facing the facts as opposed to your judgments. You're facing the facts as opposed to your evaluations. You're facing the facts as opposed to your stories and projections and so on and so forth. Now you're able to see clearly. Now here's what's beautiful. In this clarity, in this liberation, in this clearing of being able to clear out all of your projections, all of your evaluations, all of your assessments, and all these things that keep everyone a mile away, yet you yearn for intimacy so deeply, which can only connect or happen when you're connecting to authentic selves, not to wounded people with a bunch of armor up, defense mechanisms, and endless projections. But once you've cleared that out, and I encourage you, card pile 1, you're being given the guidance to do this exercise as often as you need to with this person, with this place, this thing. If you tend to judge life itself and see it as not doing you right and always delivering you a bad card or a set of cards or whatever, continue to do it. Anytime this feeling comes up, write out all of your grievances, clear it all out. I don't care if it takes 2 hours. Do what you got to do. And then turn over the page and look at it cleanly. Then what's coming up? What are the facts without the stories, without the emotional charge? You're going to find clarity. You're going to find peace within yourself. You're going to find a new birth for yourself. And you're going to be able to discover true self, higher self, spirit self. The part of you that is unrestricted by the limitation of the human ego, that is unrestricted and unheld back by the limited perspective, the limited eyesight, limited perception of the ego. You're going to be able to see clearly. You're going to be standing in your power, full ownership of your power. Also, you'll be able to take full responsibility for what you do see, because now you can trust what you're seeing, and you know what you're seeing when it's truth versus illusion, falsehood. A lot of you guys have a challenge with self-trust, and part of the reason is because sometimes you don't even know what's false and what's reality. You don't know what's facts from story. You can get so caught up in your old stories and narratives that you struggle to even see what's real. And some of you have maybe even struggled from mental illness as a result. You have been so far sort of gone into that mental realm of analysis paralysis and judgment and evaluation, looping and looping and looping and looping, that you actually lose touch with reality. You know, that experience of disassociation. So if you tended toward that, know that this is the great healing and liberation for you. Now, of course, for those of you who find it extremely difficult or this feels incredibly painful and untouchable, get the help that you need. Find a therapist. There are now therapists online. You can find them anywhere. Many of them are relatively affordable. They do take insurance many times. You know, reach out to a coach, a mentor, a healer. Work with someone who can support you out of this if you feel like you need that support. Otherwise, I've given you plenty of exercises here. You're going to discover your higher self with clean vision as a result. Yeah. So now your life will no longer be dictated by old pains and old hurts. So the secrets of your subconscious, at the root of it, was deep pain, deep hurt, deep wounding. And so as a result of this, you kind of fashioned this narrative about how life would go, or about how people would treat you, or about how things would go. And then you more or less held to that. And it was difficult for life to be able to deliver you anything else, because, you know, this is the way that you would see it anyway. So like the guy at the party, right? When the waiter keeps coming up and even brings him the most delicious food he could ever want, you know, and if he'd only try it, he would see it's his favorite food. Or the date that walks in that could be the love of his life and he turns it away. So it's like no matter what life would deliver to you, you would find a reason to push it away, to deny it, to call it a name, to label it, to say it's not good enough. And again, that's just you protecting yourself and preventing yourself from experiencing pain. And I don't think it's just safeguarding. It's also like, again, it's so subconscious. It's like you got hurt and then you actually created a belief system as a result of that, that then you believe is true and you can't see outside of it. And again, you struggle to see fiction from nonfiction. So what happens as a result? You're able to be in the world, but not of the world. Meaning, just because you're here as a human and in an ego identity, playing the role of a personality, you aren't hindered by that human, hindered by that ego identity, hindered by these old pains and woundings and hurts. Instead, you're living freely and you're able to stand in the power, prowess, and awareness of your higher self that is unlimited, that is limitless, and it's able to see truth from fiction. It's also able to see the value in all offerings, recognize that we can gain and grow from pretty much anything that comes our way. It's also able to see clearly. And because of that, it's able to make decisions and choices for itself that are much clearer and self-serving. Right now, up until this point, card pile 1, you've really struggled to live a life that is true to you. And you think it's for maybe a lot of other reasons, or you think it's because you didn't do this, or you weren't able to show up, or you weren't able to do this, or you weren't able to commit or follow through, or you didn't have the energy. I have no idea, right? I'm not actually getting any examples at all from the energy, so I'm just trying to have to pull something out of a hat. But I think each of you know what you typically tend to believe your issues are. And it's like, no, this is the deeper subconscious secret that really is holding everything back, that's been preventing you from walking forward, because you haven't had the knowingness of your own line within you. You didn't know the truth. So you weren't able to align with that, and instead are just kind of like trial and error. Maybe this, maybe that, maybe not this, maybe not that. You just weren't able to see clearly to make it an appropriate and proper decision for yourself. So card pile 1, the secret of your subconscious, as we know, is seeing through a limited filter and perception of judgments and evaluations that have prevented you from actually experiencing what it is that you want for yourself, that even when you've been given opportunities or people or places or things that really could serve and support you, you layer them with your judgments. They're never good enough, and then you ultimately find out that maybe you feel alone or isolated or disconnected, or that your life hasn't been fulfilling, but it's been because of this all along. So your healing then, which we already got, I gave you some exercises, but it's learning to see the truth from fiction, life, as opposed to your projections. So thank you, card pile 1. If this resonates for you, I know this is pretty deep work. It can be very triggering. So I acknowledge that, and I acknowledge your courage and seeing this reading through. But if you did like it, despite how difficult it might have been, I encourage you to like, to subscribe, also to share your story in the comments. I really love to hear it, and or to reach out if you find you need more support. I do offer both personal readings as well as coaching programs to support people in their life and their work and their spiritual path. I also have Spirit Woman that's out right now, a year-long coaching community to nurture your true nature and your highest potential. You can find out those details at eritygreen.com/spiritwoman. Thank you, card pile 1. Okay, card pile 2, the secrets of your subconscious. Okay, so I'm just gathering myself. Card pile 1 was a very, you can see we're at 17 minutes. It's a long, deep reading. So the secrets of your subconscious. Let me take a moment here. Okay, so the first thing that I'm getting right off the bat is there's this self-trust that is either being cultivated or has more or less been a challenge or a struggle or a difficulty or a hardship for you up until now. Okay, at some level, you have denied yourself of your own ability. I might even pull a card on this. I'm just curious. You might have denied yourself of the ability to make decisions for yourself, because maybe you've made decisions that have been hurtful in the past, like you made a mistake you thought was a mistake, or you made a choice that led to unfavorable consequences or undesirable consequences. I also feel like this could be related to relationships. So some of you found that through a connection or through a relationship or whatever, you encountered some kind of difficulty, if not disappointment, heartbreak, whatever, that led to you being unable to trust others. So this could be a lack of trust in self, a lack of trust in others. It's not clear right off the bat. Sometimes it's clear, and sometimes we have to go through the other layers of the reading. What is clear is this is a need of healing, so that you can trust yourself, so you can return to yourself once more. This could also be so that you can trust once more with other people, right? You can trust yourself and others in relationship. So I want to pull a clarifier card. Can I get a clarifier card for card pile 2? Wow. Yeah. No kidding. So for some of you, this could be in your distant past, maybe a childhood family of origin. This could also be for some of you past life related. Not everyone's going to subscribe to a past life. You don't have to believe that or have that as part of your belief system to listen to this reading. Let it land how it does. You can apply it to your own circumstances or conditions in whichever way you want. But this could be a lack of trust that has carried on from your previous life into this one. And I think maybe some of you made a big mistake. Well, I'm going to keep putting that in quotes, because our humans, the limited versions of us, might believe that we made a mistake when in truth we didn't know any better. And of course we could say it's still a mistake in that case, but there's like this feeling of not punishing yourself anymore, forgiving yourself. But I was especially getting not punishing yourself anymore. And, you might say you made this big mistake that had really big consequences. It was an accident, or you didn't mean to, or you didn't know better, but something happened either in this life or in a past life that led you to carry around the shame, guilt, punishment that then prevents you from trusting yourself at all. So you found yourself in this position of total indecision, denial of your own intuition, denial of your own truth, not being able to make a choice or decision for yourself, hypervigilant, walking on eggshells, unable to move toward, unable to move away, unable to just move, paralyzed by your own indecision, paralyzed in inaction, paralyzed by a lack of trust in yourself. This desperately wants healing within you. So the primary secret so far that I'm getting for you, card pile 2, the secrets of your subconscious, is this total lack of trust in self as a result of potential previous choices or decisions that led to undesirable or unfavorable outcomes that may have affected other people too. I feel like for some of you, in some way, you believe it affected other people. You're also, though, in not trusting yourself, you're also not trusting life itself. Because we as humans, we either have the choice to trust that everything happens for a reason and trust that everything is this big divine miracle unfolding, this divine orchestration that ultimately all works out toward the highest good, or we have the choice to believe it's all chaos, there's no order to it, it's total nonsense, there's no meaning, and it's all this endless existential crisis. It's like, well, sure, we can choose whichever one, but I would say the healthier perspective for most human beings is assuming there's some kind of meaning or orchestration or intelligence behind a lot of the things. And if we're saying that whatever our mistake or whatever accident that we believe we contributed to or perpetuated, because I think for some of you, you're making yourself out to be responsible and you weren't. So that's another thing too, is like some of y'all are taking responsibility for something that is not real or true, and you just made yourself be tethered to that. So some of you are there. But for those of you who did make the mistake, and some of you I think it was a previous life, and I do feel like it might have impacted other people, maybe family, maybe children, and you live with incredible regret, loss, remorse, self-hatred, shame, guilt, agony, so on and so forth, that may not at all be relevant to today. And instead of seeing this as a part of the divine plan of this great orchestration, recognizing that there might even be an intelligence in this, maybe you even signed up for this as a soul. There's no knowing, there's no telling. You very well could have signed up to do that, for that to happen, for a series of events to unfold like a row of dominoes that then leads to this outcome. That could have very well been the case, and yet here you are judging and shaming and guilting yourself into oblivion, never to trust yourself again, paralyzed in indecision and inaction for the rest of time. Right? That doesn't make any sense. You know, trusting in yourself is trusting in the divine and life itself, and not trusting in yourself is also not trusting the divine. So there's just a general lack of distrust here as a result of what happened. Some of you know what happened, I feel like. Some of you do not. Some of you weren't at all responsible, but you make yourself responsible. And then some of you were responsible, but you've yet been able to free yourself, forgive yourself, let that go, to move on. So let's move on here. Yeah, so what wants to come through, you know, we're talking about the secrets of your subconscious, is an experience of trusting yourself, of trusting your inner wisdom, of trusting your inner guidance, of trusting yourself, of trusting the cosmos, of trusting the universe, God, Great Spirit, whatever you call it. This trust does want to come through for you, and there wants to be a change in how you operate and how you live. Like, so much it feels like of your inner world is dictated by just extensions of, projections of that one single event. It's like this one single event happened, and then this cloud has followed you ever since. And, you know, it happened in the past. It might still be relevant. And I can't tell you not to be upset about it, or to not feel it, or for it to not matter, because that's not true. It does matter. You know, I think that has to be acknowledged here. But Spirit is saying it's not the final truth. It's not the end game. It's not the ultimate outcome. You know, Spirit's saying that, you know, it wants you to be able to learn to trust yourself. There's a nudge, yes, but there's like an invitation to try again, an invitation to let yourself off the hook, an invitation to try again in every moment. And I love try again because it feels so gentle and forgiving, and it even implies that you might have to try again. You know, you just try again. And you try again, and you try again. You may not get it right every time, and you might make mistakes, but that's a part of this experience. And it doesn't mean you sever yourself from yourself, punish yourself into eternity, and assume failure and defeat, and assume that you are worthless or not good enough or worth, you know, endless judgment. It's essentially your own constructed hell. And it's saying, well, that's not it. That's not it at all. That's not what's meant for you. This isn't the final answer, the end game. You can try again. And I'm not getting whether or not, you know, the Spirit isn't saying like, oh, you didn't make a mistake. I mean, for some of you, I got that earlier, but I'm saying it's not even like trying to cover something up or make something better than what it is or any of that stuff. I'm not getting that. It's really this, so it happened, now what? It did happen, now what? How can we start repairing? How can we start mending? How can we start healing? As opposed to just staying there, letting that be the reality, letting that be the final answer, letting that be the final chapter that just goes on and on and on and on. Because if you don't liberate yourself from this life, you're going to carry it on into the next one. So, when does it end? Spirit wants to ask you that. When does it end? When do you let yourself off the hook? If not now, when? Ever? Is eternal damnation and condemnation the answer? And when you turn it around that way and you start looking at it for yourself in a rational way, that can be supportive sometimes. Like, well, shoot, eternal condemnation probably isn't the answer. So then why am I choosing that for myself, right? And so that's what God, Great Spirit, Cosmos, Universe wants to ask. Why not try again? Why not? So it happened. And now what? What happens from here? Are you willing to consider healing and mending? Like, yes, this happened, but the next step then is the healing, the mending, the repair. You haven't even moved on to that. And again, that could also be because you're not trusting yourself. And so you just settle right back into your old default pattern, which is the gloomy cloud, Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. So let's see what else is here. Yeah, you guys. The reminder here, the message is sort of like the consolation, and not even a consolation, but like the balm, I guess, is it's already happened. It's over. Yes, it happened, but it's over. It's gone. There's a period there. Like, it happened, period. You flip the page, you're in a whole other chapter. For many of you, this was a past life. For many of you, it was this life. And it feels like it could have even been recent for some of you, like within the past 10 years. But it's said and done. Universe, God, Great Spirit wants to say, your higher self, whatever, that it's like, yes, it happened, but now it's time to move on. Like, things do happen, right? And yet the next step then is moving into the next step, as opposed to staying in the same place, right? There's this natural progression. Energy moves. So if you were following the flow or the energy, you'd already be in that next step of moving on, healing, mending, but you've sort of relegated yourself to this place. Now, there is a lingering message on the fringe of my awareness that I want to give some space for, so just give me a moment. Like, there's nothing you can do. You can't go into the past. You can't. It's already been done. And I know that can be hard to hear. And so I acknowledge that. But again, that logic, that reason can sometimes be supportive to recognize there is no going back. There's nothing more you can do. Are you willing to let go of the things you cannot control? Are you willing instead to focus on what you can control? Every moment since then, whether past life or this one, you have continued to choose that wound or that mistake or what you see as a mistake, even if it wasn't a mistake. You continue to choose it and affirm it in most of your moments now by, again, not trusting yourself, not being able to take action, not being able to make a decision, not trusting yourself, feeling unsafe, feeling unworthy. And there's an opportunity to free yourself from that. And yet, I understand you haven't yet. And so that's the opportunity today. The secrets of your subconscious is that you've been holding yourself back for too long. You've been holding yourself back into a time frame that has already over. That's already been said and done. All you can control is now, and you've already given way so many nows to that wound, to that situation, to that experience. You've already dedicated a lot of your life, some of you for 10 years, some of you for many lives, for the past life. You've already given decades in some cases, it looks like, to that wound. It doesn't need any more of you. It's time to forgive, and that's that next message. Free yourself. And here's the thing, is only you can free yourself. And this reminds me of sort of like that belief that hell isn't even real. And if you don't subscribe to that, that's your business, okay? But I'm thinking of the teaching that hell isn't even real. Hell is when we create hell for ourselves. And I feel like for your card pile 2, the secrets of your subconscious is the self-imposed prison / hell that you've created for yourself that isn't real and was never given to you and was never constructed for you. You were never put in there. You put yourself in there, and you have the key to break free. You have the key to move on, to heal, to forgive. The forgiveness is the surrender of that energy. The forgiveness is the surrender of that judgment about yourself. The forgiveness is the surrender of letting that be sort of the paradigm that you operate within and make decisions through all the time. The healing then, the forgiveness is surrendering all the ways in which you continue to carry this wound with you. It's surrendering the wound, surrendering the ways of thinking and being and feeling that have come from a result of that experience. Yeah. Oh, this is hard. Here's the card. Broken dreams. Do you see that? It's like your whole... Oh, it makes me cry. You guys know I like cry pretty much on almost every reading. Sometimes tears of joy, and other times I really feel for you. And it's crazy because I feel like I hear in a lot of readings people say, oh, heavy energy, or that feels really heavy. F that. I don't feel heavy energy. What I feel is empathy, compassion, kindness, love. You know, that's what I feel for you guys. It's not, oh, well, this is your heavy energy. To me, that's just such BS. But that's a side note. So broken dreams. This shattered, like look at her looking in the mirror. This shattered every hope that you had for life. It shattered all of your trust, your faith, your hope, your optimism. It shattered your trust and belief in life. It shattered your motivation. It shattered your desire to grow, to live, to express yourself. It actually brought you into a place of living a very narrow life experience that only tries to compensate for your mistake. You're living a life not of your full expression, not of your true, unlimited truth, not of your highest potential, not of what you truly deeply want. Like you might be saying to yourself that you are, but you're actually living a very narrow reality of compensating for a mistake that you think you made. Your whole life is just trying to compensate for this mess you say you made. You know, like, I made my bed, I'm going to sleep in it, you know, and it's like doing that over and over and over, as opposed to actually thinking outside of the wound. If you're thinking and doing and feeling outside of the wound, you could have been guided somewhere totally different by now, or you might have been guided into something that's a little bit more expansive, or maybe even something that's a little bit more fulfilling, or something that really lights you up. And it's not that saying that you don't have things like that in your life. You do. I'm not feeling that your whole life is just a miserable prison and hell. Like, we're focused on the subconscious, we're focused on this. So your life likely has a lot of great pieces to it. But the whole thing is you're not even able to fully receive it, fully enjoy it, fully be in it, because you're holding yourself hostage in this place of just like repeating the same old story. It's like a ghost who continues to go into war every single day for all of time. Wakes up, does the same thing, wakes up, does the same thing, but literally a ghost. It's not even real anymore, but he keeps on showing up every day and going into his death. Showing up every day, going back into war, back to his death. It does this every single day the rest of time. That's where you're living from. So it shattered you in a lot of ways. But here's the thing. Spirit wants to remind you of the opportunity, and this is a difficult card for me to share, honestly, because it's like a big gap between where your subconscious is and what Spirit or this reading is asking you to do. So it's a little bit difficult for me to present. But it's saying it wants you to see perhaps the greater perfection in the divine unfolding. It wants you not to like commit to something you can't even possibly see right now, that you're unwilling to even look at. But it wants you to at least consider. It wants you to cultivate the willingness to consider that this might have been, quote unquote, meant to be. Or this might have been something that was bigger than you, that was divinely orchestrated, that you had no choice or hand in, really. Like you might have physically, but that it was, something that was more divinely ordained, or that must happen, or that was guided toward happening, something you would never have been able to control, something you would never have been able to foresee and change. There's just this willingness. Again, it's not like this forced down your throat, see the perfection in your life, be grateful, everything happens for a reason, see ya. No, but it's more like, are you willing to consider that there are things that are bigger than you? Are you willing to consider that there are things that you can't possibly understand? Are you willing to consider that there are purposes that you'll never be able to completely understand as a human being? Are you willing to consider there's a much bigger picture unfolding at all times that's divinely orchestrated and highly intelligent that you couldn't possibly tap into ever, let alone this single lifetime and this finite mind about this one thing? Are you willing to consider that there's an opportunity for peace here or resolution? You know, are you willing to consider, you know, and it's hard for me to say some of it because it's like, you know, I have my own blocks. I'm a human, you know, so it's like, you know, what wants to come through are those offerings, are those questions, are those inquiries, because even those simple inquiries are going to start creating space that can sort of gently nudge you toward a greater willingness to see the bigger perspective, to see the greater intelligence, to recognize divine wisdom, and even more difficult, but also what it's nudging you toward, is trust in the divine plan no matter what, no matter how it shows up. Whether it shows up in a pretty bow, or as a monstrosity, or as one of the biggest traumas of your life, one of the biggest or greatest tragedies of your life or many lifetimes. Are you willing to consider that it's finally orchestrated? Are you willing to consider, are you willing to trust? Are you willing to trust in the divine plan, and the divine intelligence no matter what? Now, there is something there about getting yourself into a place of, or a space of, and that's maybe the spiritual offering here, the spiritual contribution, the spiritual gift. And I know, and I'm treading these waters quite lightly. If you can't tell, I'm trying to skirt around things and voice things in a way that don't feel invalidating, because I would never want to invalidate someone, and it's not at all what the energy is. It's very much validating, but it's saying that happened, and now what? Yes, I'm validating you. Okay, but what about now? However many years later or lifetimes later. And ultimately, the spiritual quote unquote purpose or lesson or meaning, one thing that you could take from it, and you do not have to take this on if it's not yours, you get to do you, boo, okay? But it's saying that there's an opportunity here in terms of your soul to be able to learn to trust God, Great Spirit, higher power, universe, no matter the form of whatever it is that comes into your life. Are you willing to put ultimate trust and faith into the great theatrical play that is life, that is the human experience, no matter how it shows up in your life? It's really a testament of faith and a test of your faith, a test of your trust. How much do you trust? And that's really what this whole reading was about, right? Which what we started with, which was an inability to trust yourself, but we got down to the why, which is also a reflection of an inability to trust God and the divine plan and whatever else we want to call it. And so the secrets of your subconscious, card pile 2, is all about freeing yourself from this old wounding so that you can live present to what's actually here, as opposed to the narrow version of reality your mind has created. More or less as a punishment for a crime that you didn't even know, it feels like many of you knew that you were committing. And it's ultimately up to you to surrender these judgments about yourself, the condemnation, so on and so forth, so you can live more freely. And that there's this gentle guiding invitation, welcoming question of just this gentle inquiry of, are you willing to consider that there might have been purpose in this? Are you willing to consider that it was out of your hands? Are you willing to consider that this is bigger than you and you really didn't get a say? Are you willing to work with me and learn to trust no matter what I deliver to your door? God wants to ask that. And so that's for you to decide, card pile 2. Thank you so much for watching. If this resonated for you, I encourage you to like, to subscribe, to share your story in the comments. Of course, I do offer personal readings as well as coaching programs to support you in your life, in your work, and on your spiritual path. I also have a program enrolling now. It's a year-long coaching community to nurture your true nature and your highest potential. That's called Spirit Woman. And you can find more details out at aritygreen.com/spiritwoman. Thank you, card pile 2. All right, card pile 3, the secrets of your subconscious. The secrets of your subconscious. Okay, so card pile 3, you have a conscious desire to be seen, to be known, to share your work, to share your voice. Some of you have big dreams, or maybe you can consider yourself a visionary or a star seed or a light worker or a healer, but you feel like you've come here to do the darn thing, to change the world. Again, you could identify as light worker or star seed, so you do have that kind of like world changer, new age or new earth bringer kind of energy within you. But whether that is relevant, like this broad view, it's like more or less it's about stepping into your voice, onto your path, pursuing your life's work, being in your purpose, walking the most aligned path, and being of service or contributing in a big way. For some of you, it could specifically be about your voice and stepping into, right, we're talking the throat chakra of purpose, creative expression, your path, your work, how you're of service, what you contribute. And so a lot of you guys are, that's where you're at in your life now, or moving, what you're moving toward. But the secret of your subconscious, what's in your subconscious, is this lack of self-love, or this judgment about yourself, or a belief in your unworthiness or your lack of deservingness. There's a subscription to, there's more judgment you have about yourself than self-love. There's more unworthiness than there is a sense of self-worth, right? And it doesn't mean this is wrong or bad, right? We all have our particular flavor. This whole reading so far, each card pile has had a different sort of block or secret within the subconscious, and this happens to be yours, right? There's nothing wrong or bad about it. It's just we acknowledge it and we see, okay, you know, I do have some self-defeating patterns or sort of self-destructive patterns I'm even feeling for some of you. I'm feeling self-sabotage for some of you. And what it actually comes down to, the deeper root, the deeper thread or that through line actually has to do with you believing yourself unworthy, not good enough. And for some of you, I even feel like incapable of handling the consequences of this bigger vision, this bigger outcome, this bigger success, being seen, being known. And so it's like not necessarily just that or only that, or that you judge yourself and think you're not good enough and you don't know if you can do it and you're kind of scared to put your voice out there, your message or whatever. You know, for some of you that may be the case, but it also feels like for some of you, it's like, well, I feel pretty comfortable with that piece, but then there's the other part of you, this other, right, the secret of the subconscious, where there's a part of you who fears what would be to come or what would come as a result. So, you know, if I created that much success, or if I was seen or world renowned or known in that way, what would happen? You know, whatever kind of fears of success that we might have as humans. And of course, you have your own unique flavor of that. So taking a look at your own conditions and circumstances and how you tend to treat yourself or talk to yourself, or what your assumptions about how things are, or the way you expect them to turn out, the way that you expect them to be, that's the place to look and to shine a light of awareness on those places or on those parts and pieces. But there's something here about, if I do blank, then I don't know if I can handle the consequences of that. You know, is it because you're scared to take on that much work, or to take on that many eyeballs, that many people looking at you, nervous about all the projections that might be thrown at you, or the things you might have to carry, or that you might have to, you know, show up sometimes when you really don't feel like it. You know, you're feeling down and low, but usually when you're pretty well off or successful or whatever, there are plenty of times you kind of have to pick up your big boy or big girl pants no matter what, and you're nervous about having to do that. You know, oh wow, I actually have to commit, you know, and I have to recommit, and I have to do it again and again. And so there's some fear here around, can I do this? Can I manage this? Can I handle this? And then for some of you too, it's, am I good enough? Am I deserving of this? And there's this belief of, this root belief of like feeling unworthy of your own desires. Like, who am I to? You know, who am I to have? Can I have? You know, those kinds of things. So let's move on and see what else is here. So I do feel like, of course, the alchemy is continuing to move toward whatever this vision is, whatever this quest is, whatever this outcome is, your creative expression, your purpose path, your life's work. It's very clear that this wants to be alchemized. Otherwise, it wouldn't be coming up here in the reading today, right? The secrets of the subconscious are meant to be revealed or known and understood so that we can make progress and move forward and no longer be hindered or held down by these blocks and patterns. So let's check out this card. I do like to read these cards because they do have a caption on them. This is the Lantern Oracle. The ending and beginning lie at either side of the same door. So let me see what I'm getting from this card here. I might even pull a clarifier card for you. Of course, I go to pull it up. Okay. We get another voice card, right? I think some of this has to do with surrendering yourself of any of the small thoughts or the subscriptions to limitation or whatever. I feel like this is part of it, but I feel like there's also something else that wants to come through. So I'm just going to give some words to this and see where it takes us, where the flow takes us. But there's something to not identifying with the smaller thoughts, the little thoughts, the mind, these ideas or whatever they are that really aren't relevant, right? Like, we have a choice to either identify with our small self, ego, limited personality, or ego identity, or we have the choice to identify with our higher self, our bigger power, our greater truth. And part of our work is more or less making a lot of our judgments about ourselves or evaluations irrelevant and pointless. Because when we stop identifying with just the small self, when we're able to step outside of the small self and kind of identify with our higher self, with this greater perspective, with this deeper wisdom, we're able to see like how irrelevant our judgments really are. And it's easier to then really own our path and our purpose, because we're identifying as spirit or an extension of spirit, of God. Like we came here with some work to do, okay? And really my small self has nothing to do with this. I'm just using it as a tool. My ego is a tool. The personality is a tool. It's a nice face for the YouTube channel, right? Like that's what we might tell ourselves. But that's really it, because spirit is really running the show, and I'm here for a purpose and for a reason. And my soul has all these other things to do, and certainly not to worry about these trivialities around, you know, what my little mind or ego self has to say about what I'm doing. So there is something here about trusting the divine and following the divine path and allowing that to be the final say. There's really not any room or care for any sort of irrelevant feedback that your mind might have to offer based on these deeper insecurities. But I do feel like there's another message here. So I'm going to spend about 1 to 2 minutes meditating on this, because I do feel something on the fringe of my awareness. It's just not here yet. So bear with me. I will be back in just a moment. Okay, so what I did was sit there and meditate for a moment. I pulled a clarifier card and I read the description in the book to see if it had anything to offer. Most of it actually didn't land in terms of the energy of this reading, and that's okay. But the couple things that did come through as a result of that and the clarifier card, and I feel like this was obvious from the beginning, but sometimes I like to check, especially with a new deck and whatnot, and I was getting no energy. So sometimes in that case, I'll just show the card and ask the viewer to make a decision for themselves. But I always like to try first and see where it takes us. So it's almost like that choice point, that once and for all, releasing and surrendering this belief in your unworthiness. Once and for all, releasing and surrendering this subscription to your not enoughness, this lack of deservingness. Because here's the thing, it's not a matter necessarily of just like going out there and owning, you know, just own it, you know, because there are some valid feelings here that have to be addressed. And so it feels like, though, that some of you or most of you have done the work in this regard. You've known this to be something for you. You've seen it show up 1,000 different times in 1,000 different forms. So I feel like you've already beat this horse to death in a lot of ways, because it's shown up on so many layers and levels of your life, like even the partners that you choose or the things that you do or whatever it is. It's like unworthiness tends to be a pretty common denominator for you, such that you're settling often, or you're choosing the lesser version of whatever form it is, or assuming the worst case scenario, or assuming that, you know, the smallest morsel out of a buffet of food available. Oh, I'll just take this. That's just enough for me. Thanks. You know, oh, I'll just have water. No, thank you. You don't need to help me with my bags. So, right, just even the tiniest little of ways, allowing unworthiness to sort of seep into a lot of even the micro decisions of your life. And Spirit's asking you once and for all to free yourself from this. Free yourself from this tiny fraction of what you are actually capable of. Like, you give yourself a morsel and you could have the whole damn pie. Okay? Spirit says you're here not to experience a very limited, tiny fraction of what life has to offer. This isn't the lifetime for that. You might have had other lifetimes where you got the small morsel, or you lived in impoverishment, whether material or emotional. You know, there might have been lifetimes where you chose limitation. This was actually a lifetime for you to experience more, the bigger pie, the whole buffet. And it doesn't mean you're gonna go out there. I am not saying like, hey, self-gratuitous excess, go for it and just throw the whole ecosystem off for the fun of it. Like, no, I'm not a fan even of that kind of, we'll say greed, corruption, wealth. So I would never want to portray that on this channel. But what is coming through, like the energy that is here is like saying like, well, first of all, someone like you is never going to go overboard and completely out of balance, because you have such a balance with what you believe is like just, like you have high integrity, and you would always hold yourself to a high standard. So you're not someone who would ever overconsume or throw, like, again, a whole ecosystem off balance. That's just not who you are. So it's not even something you have to concern yourself with if you ever have. But what it is saying is you didn't come here for a piece of the pie, baby. You came here for the whole damn pie. Part of your work is allowing yourself to receive this pie. I feel like some of you have been unable to move forward in your purpose work, your path, your creative expression, whatever it is you're working toward. Not because of like some of the other reasons you think it's been, but part of the secret of the subconscious being that you have denied yourself of what this path would bring. So if this path were to bring fame, fortune, just say a lot of money, clients, people, audiences, people listening to you, it's like because you're so nervous or unyielding or unwilling or pushing away all of this, right? Because you, again, deem yourself unworthy of this or unable to handle that or whatever. If you're saying that you don't want fame and fortune, and yet your path would require that or automatically bring that about, well, then you're at an impasse. The double bind, that's what my teacher calls it. It's where you say you want one thing, but you actually want something else. But this is so interesting to me because, like, you say you want to walk, but you've cut your feet off. It's basically like that. It's like if you are to pursue on this path, there are some bigger gains and outcomes and successes for you. But if you say that you're not worthy of that success, it's going to be really hard for this path to unfold, because that's inevitably where it leads. So if you say you don't want you don't want Oz, you don't want to go to the Castle of Oz, I don't want to go to the Green Emerald Castle, that's not relevant for me, I don't want it, I'm not worthy, whatever, then you're never going to travel down the yellow brick road. What's the point? Because that's where it inevitably leads. And same thing here for you. You're saying you want the purpose work, the path, the life's work, all this stuff, and yet you are telling yourself you're unworthy of the ultimate outcome, destination, what is realized or manifested as a result of this path. So what you need to acknowledge is not only this ongoing delusion of your unworthiness and lack of deservingness and not enoughness. That's only part of it. The other piece is seeing where you feel like you can't manage or handle the consequences of this choice, because again, you're not enough, or you can't do it, or you wouldn't know how to handle it. Again, not trusting yourself, not believing you're enough, or that you would have the right resources to do the right thing, to make the right choice, so on and so forth. But also to recognize that some of you fear the end result of the choice or choices to make, or the steps to take on this path of your purpose work, of your creative expression, of your craft. You fear the end result, so in effect are struggling to move forward, struggling to find certainty, struggling to have the motivation to show up, perhaps engaging in self-sabotage or self-destructive behaviors that prevent you from taking the steps, or taking the steps consistently. Ultimately, you're not trusting, you're not having faith, you're not having faith in yourself, and you're not having faith in yourself and in your ability to handle it. But here, of course, the alchemy is making the decision, right? That choice point of, I'm going to release this and surrender all of this once and for all. I'm going to surrender this belief in my unworthiness and not enoughness, and self-judgment, and so on and so forth. I'm going to release my lack of belief in myself to be able to show up and hold this much fame and fortune, or create space for whatever it is to come in my life. I'm going to release the belief that I can't manage that, handle that, delegate that, quit that, simplify this, do, whatever it is, it's going to require of you. Trust that whatever it is you need, you have in you. Trust yourself well enough to know that if you've handled your life up until now, you're going to be just fine on the other side of this too. All right. But there's a choice point to finally be emptied of this, to finally surrender this, to finally let go of this. It's almost like, and I like this photo, and I think I might have already shared, but I'll share it again. Of sort of laying down, see how she's laying down? That's a surrender to me. It's like laying down these old beliefs, laying your limited or your small self down to be taken by spirit, right? You're laying it all down, this old identity, this old attire that speaks of limitation and I can't do it, or I won't do it, or I can't have it, I can't handle it, all of this stuff, laying it all down, like even seeing yourself, visualizing yourself, laying this down in this part, and like just slowly laying down and just giving yourself over to God. Giving yourself over to spirit, letting yourself be reborn, born anew into this greater awakening of your true power, of your true self, of your higher self, of your greater path, of what you're capable of what you deeply want even, but won't allow yourself to have, because again, you don't believe yourself worthy. You're scared what's going to happen as a result. Do you hear this? So I want to move on to the other parts of the reading, but there is something here about the ultimate surrender, making that choice to let it go, deciding that this is no longer a story for you that you're going to hold on to. This is no longer an armor that you're going to carry, a belief that you're going to occupy. You're surrendering it all to spirit now in this moment. Make that choice right now if that's what you desire. I release the belief in my smallness. I release the belief in my not enoughness. I release the belief in my unworthiness. I release the belief in my lack of deservingness. I release the belief that I can't handle it, or I don't have faith in myself, or I think I won't be able to do it or make it. I release the belief that bad things are going to happen if I pursue this path, that people are going to want too much of me, I'm not going to be able to do it, I'm not going to be able to handle it. I will release all of that. Of course, your flavor of that's going to be different, so it's based on you, your circumstances, but oftentimes this stuff operates subconsciously. I mean, that's the reading, right? The secrets of your subconscious. So now this stuff is coming to light, and you might have other reasons you need to add, and you need to surrender and release. But ultimately, it's a choice, it's a decision to release this. I do want to ask, how? I know we already got a little bit of that earlier, which is trusting in your higher power, trusting in your higher self, your true self, trusting in the path itself, like not giving too much attention to self or limited self and your deservingness, really just not giving too much energy, thought, or attention. What is that? Ain't nobody got the time, or whatever that saying is. I can't remember right now, but it's like more so trusting in that bigger perspective, the grander perspective, that you're here to do this, your soul came here to do that, Spirit has you doing this, and like that's it. There's no argument, there's no talking back, there's no little self arguing with big self. Oh, I don't know, or I don't want, or I can't. I mean, you know, a lot of times when I get this kind of energy, this kind of reading, it's just like Spirit's just like, this is just BS at this point. Like, just move on. Like, that's enough. Kind of like a kid, you know, at first you might validate them, support them, hold them lovingly and tenderly, coddle them, support them to like move through an emotion, or create or hold space for themselves, or make a better choice to nurture themselves, whatever. And so then like you might do that at first, but then you find it's just like increasing the agitation, or, you know, causing greater behaviors or bigger problems. And so then like 3 or 4 hours later, you're not still doing that. You're saying, all right, let's move on. Like we've moved on, buck up or shut up. It's time to move forward. And that's where you're at, where Spirit's just like, okay, there's been enough of this. Like, we're moving on. Old story, chapters closed, sayonara, you know? So that's where you're at. So as a result of this clearing out, and what I find to be so incredible, look at this. I don't think this is by any chance. I mean, it never is. But look how she's sort of gutted there, or emptied, right? She's cleared out. She's laying down. She's cleared out all of those old beliefs, all of those old subscriptions, those allegiances to a smaller self, a smaller life, smaller outcomes, more limited reality, all that stuff that her small self has sort of resigned itself to, or relegated itself to. You've cleared out all that. You sorted all to Spirit. You said, God, this is no longer what I want for myself. I want to dream big. I want to go big. I want to hold more. I want to create more wealth, abundance. I want to experience all my life path and my life purpose has to offer. I'm ready. This is what I want. Help me to hold it. Guide me, show me, lead me the way. You get there, and what happens? You're able to experience the fullness of your expression. You step into, I'm feeling a couple of different things. You step into a greater creative power within yourself, a greater personal power, but ultimately you do experience the fullness of what's to come. Okay. Now, what's interesting is it doesn't feel like it's like, because like it shows a pregnancy, right? It doesn't show like an abundance card, a success card, but well, I mean, it actually does. Okay. Sure. Fine. It's ahead of me, but it's saying like you start to experience the fullness of what your path has to offer as a result of surrendering this, of no longer claiming this small self, this humble nonsense of whatever, you can't have it, you don't deserve it. After you've cleared that, you've completely released that to Spirit, you've emptied yourself, literally gutted yourself of all of these insecurities, and just said, I'm done. I'm through with these. I surrender these to you. What comes through then is, again, that more greater awareness. You're filling yourself out. You're filling your shoes. You know, you're filling out into this greater potential. You're filling out into this creative expression, this purpose path, this life's work. You can be there 100% fully because you're not holding back in these other areas. Your small self isn't still holding back, holding you down, telling you you can't have it, telling you won't be able to handle it, all that stuff. None of those are there, so you're able to experience the fullness of your path, which does ultimately lead to the fullness of your manifestation. Exactly. What you want you, but what you want wants you, but you have to decide to let it come to you. You're the one keeping it at a distance. You're the one saying it's far away. You're the one who's saying, I want it, but I don't. I want it, but maybe not that much. I want it, but I'm kind of concerned about it. I want it, but I don't know if I deserve it. I want it, but I don't know if I can hold it. I mean, that's it. It would actually be in your hands right now. So let that ball drop, baby. Let it drop. It's in your hands. Feel it in your hands. What does it feel like to hold this much success, to hold this much worldly outcome, this recognition, this success, this outcome, this big vision? What does it feel like to hold? See if you can hold on to that for as long as possible. See if you can maintain that energy inside of yourself, because it's here. It wants to manifest. It wants to materialize. What happens? You're able to experience that wealth, that success, that abundance, that greater vision, the greater limitless potential that's in store for your life. You've been telling yourself it has to be limited, or it has to be small, or it has to be low, or it has to be minimal. It can be those things if that's what you truly want. But it's saying you actually came here to experience the opposite. And it wasn't just success and wealth and all that stuff for the sake of that. It wasn't. Actually, your path, your mission, your soul's sort of destiny or contract, or whatever it is you were intended to intended to do in this life or accomplish in this life, it was more to do with, because you follow your path and your purpose, and because you are contributing and being of service in this way, because you are sharing your voice in this way, because all the wonderful things he does. We're back to the Wizard of Oz. What happens is you develop that wealth, that success, that fame, fortune, recognition, whatever it is that comes around the bend for you uniquely. That happens as a result of stepping into this purpose path. It's like an automatic result. It's like you do this and this is what happens. It's like 2 looks like the number 2. So it's 2, yeah, but it automatically comes with the written form of 2, right? So it's kind of like just by nature of stepping into this role of walking this path, you can materialize this abundance, this success, or whatever. And that was the path for you. That's what you said you were going to do, and that's what you're here to do, but you've been keeping it at bay. So you do receive this, and you ultimately, actually, you experience, not only do you experience, I feel like, a lot of emotional fulfillment, a lot of financial fulfillment, and just a lot of joy and bliss all around, really being able to allow yourself to experience this limitless potential, which is really, I think, incredible. Like, it just feels so good. I don't know if you can feel it right now, but not only do you have this incredible fulfillment, but it's also not this shock. Again, you're not coming from that place of total insecurity and undeservingness, so you're just shocked, but it's like really pleasantly surprised, like, wow, like, I really deserve this, like, pat on the back, but just like this really a great sense of awe, wonder, and gratitude that maybe someone who has already experienced that or had it or, felt entitled to it, that they wouldn't feel that, but you really feel emotionally and financially fulfilled, and you're really, truly amazed at what has come to pass in your life, and that this was always, something that you were going to experience. Ultimately, your inner child's dreams come true. So if your inner child dreamt of fame, of fortune, of creative performance, or whatever it was that your inner child dreamed of, that is what comes to pass as a result. So the more you can tap into that innocence, the purity of your inner child, and the kind of daydream-like fantasies that it had, that was unhampered and untainted down by the world and practical concerns and practical realities and fears about whether you were worthy or worth it and all that stuff, long before any of that stuff came into being, you just had you and your daydreams. You just had you and your childlike curiosity. You just had you and your childlike innocence. That's the purity that not only do these come to pass, but that's the purity you can embody. Remember how you're talking about emptying out, surrendering all those old fears and beliefs and all that stuff, those subscriptions to small self, to limitation, because it is a choice, right? You do get to make that choice. I do want to ask how, though. I might pull an extra card for you. I know this is a long reading, but if you want to learn to get into the energy of your desire, energy of your vision, energy of this abundance, energy of the ultimate outcome, it's getting into that inner child, childlike wonder or awe that you had as a child when it was untainted by all these other fears and beliefs and all that stuff. So just get into the inner child and play and enjoy yourself and explore and daydream and fantasize. If that's the inner, start practicing by getting into that energy and watch your life unfold, as opposed to being in this energy or in judgment or limitation or fear, getting more into the energy of your child, your inner wonder child, energy of your desire. There's something else here, though, that I wanted to say as well. Getting into the energy of your desire. We'll see if it comes. This reading's already so long, I'm not going to pause it again. But there was something here about, like, again, getting into the energy of the fantasy, the dream, the daydream. And that way you're feeding that reality and feeding that energy and feeding that feeling state as opposed to the other one. So do we have any final messages on how to surrender the insecurities for card pile 3? Oh my goodness, you've got to be kidding me. We got a bunch of cards. I'm going to do a quick rundown. Okay. So for some of you, you might have seen yourself as the black sheep, the weird one, the oddball out. It's the overtime that made you feel like, something was wrong about you. There was something to be ashamed about, so on and so forth. It feels like your mind can bring forth a lot of heavy energy, or maybe even, I don't want to say dark thoughts, but just like a lot of confusion and chaos. Like anytime you're in your thinking mind and it's causing you an energetic drain and it's not feeling good, you can best believe that it's your mind. It's connected to this lack of deservingness, maybe even perfectionism, and it has to be perfect, it has to be right, it has to be this, or it has to be that. So if you're feeling an energetic drain with your thoughts, recognizing it's probably perfectionism, which is also tied to a lack of worthiness and deservingness. I'm not letting you just be as you are. And then it says, ironically, like you made your black sheep thing a problem. Like you said, oh, well, I'm not like anybody else. This is my problem, and this is why I'm bad and not good enough and can't have this and can't have that. That was a big story that you created, but it's actually the key to your abundance. You being different, you being unusual, you being the oddball out, you being the black sheep, you being all of these things and these judgments that you've made up about yourself all of these years, however long you've been on this planet, that is actually the key to your genius, the key to your gifts. And as a coach, actually, I've said that for years. The one thing that you think is your greatest weakness, or the thing you judge yourself the most about, I even used to have a term for it. It's been too many years, but that's actually the key to your genius, to your success, to your wealth. And that's what it's saying here. Everything that you made wrong about yourself was actually what was right about yourself, and ultimately is what leads to this path and this greater success and these ultimate outcomes. So when I say how, well, how do they change these insecurities? We already talked about surrender as a ritual or as a choice point, and actually surrendering that and feeling the energy move through your body, ideally, if you can get yourself in that state. But then the other piece is when these thoughts come up about not being good enough, and not about, whatever it is, black sheep, I'm not good enough, comparison, seeing it for what it is, right? If you have a draining thought or something that doesn't feel good, it's probably telling you something's out of alignment. And recognizing and just redirecting that awareness to, oh wait, this is exactly and precisely what leads to the greater fruits of my labor. This is what leads to my greater success and abundance. So I do feel like this reading could probably go on even further. There's more energy here, but we have to end the reading. This is a very long one for you all. So card pile 3, the secret to your subconscious. So the secrets is actually this self-judgment that you carried for a long time as a result of being the black sheep, as a result of being the oddball out. Also, this ongoing belief or undercurrent of feeling unworthy, a lack of deservingness, which has led to you leading a much smaller life than what you're capable of or what was meant for you. So recognizing that this is actually not the ultimate truth. These small self-definitions and perceptions of you are not true. That was never what you were meant for. That's a story, and it was a story that has now expired. So now, card pile 3, you get to decide to surrender that once and for all, to make a choice to own who you truly are and this greater path and purpose that you have to claim and walk. And this path leads to a much greater limitless vision than I think that you could probably even imagine. And again, when those old thoughts pop up, recognize that these are not the things that make you wrong or bad or ugly. These are the very things that bring about, support you to bring about greater abundance on your path. So thank you, card pile 3. If this lands, if this resonates, I encourage you to like, to subscribe, to share your story in the comments. Of course, I do offer both personal readings as well as coaching programs to support you in your life, in your work, and on your spiritual path. I do have a program out right now. It's called Spirit Woman. It's a year-long coaching community to support you to nurture your true nature and your highest potential. So do check out those details, arietgreen.com/spiritwoman. Thank you, card pile 3. Okay, so card pile 4. I want to first note that my AC is on. I usually turn it off for my readings, so I sure hope that it's not too loud. You guys will have to let me know in the comments if you can hear me. I will speak and project my voice as best as I can, or as loudly as I can. That way I know for sure you can hear me, and I want you to hear this clearly. Perhaps it might be worthwhile to get headphones, but do let me know how it sounds. But I've spent the day doing reading after reading after reading, and I just can't sit in the heat anymore. So please forgive me. And let's go ahead and get started on your reading today. These have been very, very thorough, deep, and comprehensive. Really long, intense readings. So we'll see what comes up for you, card pile 4. Let's check out this view here. Okay, so the first thing, it seems as if you have struggled in relationships. So card pile 4, it's not showing yet what this is, how this has taken form in your life so far, but I'm feeling like you've been burned. You've been burned in the past. You don't know who to trust anymore. You would really like to have connections or people in your life. You'd like to, have the relationships, the love or connection or whatever it is that we all share with people, right? No one loves living on a deserted island like Tom Hanks in the movie where he's hanging out with Wilson. People prefer to live more connected lives and have more people in their lives that mean something to them. This is about relationships, soul connection, like you yearn for that, it seems like. Now, for some of you, you may not be conscious of that. You just think like you're kind of done with humanity and you don't actually want any more relationships. So at a conscious level, you might be thinking that, and this reading, card pile 4, would be telling you that it's more true that you want relationships than you don't. But if you say that you don't, that's actually yet another reflection of that lack of trust or having been burned in relationships and connections prior to. So you have even perhaps made decisions in relationships for relationships in the past that didn't turn out well, that weren't healthy for you, that weren't functional for you, that were dysfunctional, that were unhealthy, perhaps even toxic. We could even say trauma bonds. But it's sort of, it brought you to a place of just not trusting people, not trusting love, not trusting life, just not feeling like it's worth it to pursue relationships or to have other people in your life. Even though that's ultimately what you want at a deeper level, you don't even trust yourself to be able to enter into union with somebody else. And so you might find yourself, as you watch this reading, more isolated or more alone or lonely. I don't get a really intense, heavy sense of loneliness here. I just feel like a general detaching or distancing from other people, that, you know what, it's not worth the cost, it's not worth the pain, it's not worth the hiccups and the BS and the this and the that. I just don't want to deal with it. So there's some people who kind of have like this cavalier, casual attitude about it. I do feel like some of you could sit in the energy sometimes of disappointment or loss, or maybe even frustration. And again, some of you even guilt or upset at yourself, feeling like I can't pick the right people, or I tend to attract the same kind of person, and what is it about me that brings about all this stuff? And so you might also be even working through some aspects of yourself that tend to contribute to an unhealthy dynamic or a dysfunctional relationship, or something that's more like quote-unquote trauma bonding. So you're working through those pieces and parts of yourself as well, you know, how you've contributed to this. Now, so far, though, I haven't seen much, or I felt much like healthy responsibility, self-responsibility there. I feel more of like self-criticism, self-judgment, blame and shame with yourself, or guilt, as opposed to like a healthier healing process where you're taking responsibility, you're letting go of things you can no longer control. What's in the past is the past, and now you're making choices moving forward from a more empowered place. So far, the secret of your subconscious is this yearning, this desire for soul connection, for greater intimacy, for deeper union or relationships, and yet having this distrust in other people, in humanity, in relationships, in yourself, as a result of, it could be being burned, or as a result of making decisions or choosing partners that ended up not being great for you. So all in all, you end up in a situation where you're either alone, or you find yourself in relationships that truly don't serve your highest or what you truly deeply want for yourself. And so that's your secret of your subconscious right now. Okay, so a part of something that's really important here, and this is related to the subconscious block piece of this. Not that anything's truly a block. I always put that in quotes because it's really just because we're feeding it. It'll go away when we stop feeding it. But feeding it through our thoughts, actions, narratives, dialogue, all that stuff. There's a part of you that's not being authentic. So you find yourself in these relationships that don't serve who you truly are, your deeper essence, your deeper truth, your authentic self. But that's because you're not also being your authentic self. And so what I think is getting in the way is, yes, of course, getting to know our authentic self. You know, when we go on the spiritual journey or the quest to know oneself, all of this comes to light over time, and everything becomes clear, and all limitations and ego identities over time fall away and dissolve, and who we are ultimately comes out to be like, we are living our life and our ego identity as our soul, right? It's like kind of like the enlightened being, or the truly integrated person. Now, whether this actually happens now or ever, this life or others, who knows? But that's like the endeavor, right? And kind of where it all leads. But it's saying here in a lot of ways, and what I'm getting for some of you, this may not be all of you, but I actually feel like many of you, a good at least 40% or 30%, maybe more, actually I'm feeling, but we don't need to go through all the percentages, is that, you know, you might have been operating from defense mechanisms and coping mechanisms. So how I tend to see these defense mechanisms tend to be like blame and shame and pushing away, distancing, armor, shielding, not letting people in, always making it a fight. There's always some kind of conflict, that kind of thing. Coping mechanisms, how I tend to see it as, you know, this can be codependency, being a people pleaser, always trying to be on the good side of another person, you know, kind of doing everything that they say, the whole fawning thing, like whatever you need, whatever you say, honey, you know, whoever you want me to be, I'll be, whatever name you want me to have, I'll take it. You know, there's that kind of energy. There's also the coping mechanisms of substance abuse and toxic behaviors like yelling, screaming, hitting, hurting, things like that. This may not be the case for all of you. I think for some of you, when you're honest with yourself, you'll see that in yourself, and there's no blame here, right? You're here to learn what's in the subconscious, that you can heal that, so you can free yourself from these old patterns. But because you guys are both walking around in these kind of defense mechanisms and these coping mechanisms, those aren't the true self. That's not the ultimate truth. That's not self-love. That's not the soul, right? But you're walking around with pretty much, if you go into battle every day with a sword and a shield, and so do they, it's probably going to turn into a war. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're walking in ready to fight and you're walking in under the influence of a substance or whatever, you're more than likely walking into a fight. My point with that is it's very difficult to create a conscious, healthy, loving, and fulfilling connection when both people aren't coming from their authentic truth or their authentic self and moving through things consciously with emotional intelligence and integrating parts as they go, whether they be aspects of themselves or emotions or whatever. If it's all just blame, shame, projection, yelling, hitting, hurting, how do you think that's going to go, right? So there's something here about releasing all those masks, releasing all those layers that no longer serve you. They have brought nothing but oftentimes pain, loss, disappointment, upset, frustration, anger, drama. You're over the drama. You don't want this to be in your life anymore. And I feel like you're recognizing that. There's this big... there's an opportunity here, a fork in the road to do different, to experience different, because what is meant for you is meant to come to you. You know, there are greater possibilities for you. What you want for yourself, ultimately the deepest level, whether you even know what it is yet or not, even though we know that you want a conscious connection, a loving connection, a healing connection, what your soul wants for you is meant for you, but you have to be the one to claim it. You know, we can't just claim it with our words, right? Walk our walk, but not, or talk our talk, but not walk our walk. We have to put our money where our mouth is. So if we say we want a connection that is healing, that is loving, that is deeply fulfilling, we can no longer subscribe to the old drama fest, okay? If we say we want something stable and loving and fulfilling, we can't commit to or subscribe to, emotional highs and lows and emotional dramas without getting the help, the support, the healing, whatever it is required for us to learn how to manage our own emotions, integrate our emotions, make proper decisions or intentional choices in our lives from our wholeness, from being centered as opposed to emotional reactivity, right? Learning to respond as opposed to react. So it's like all these things that you want at a deeper level that it feel like aren't yet even clear for you yet, like you're not even there yet to even know what you want, but you just know this isn't it. These relationships aren't it. The way it's shown up so far isn't it. Remember, you were like, done. Bye. I'm done. Just forget it. I won't even bother. But it's like, well, you truly, though, deeply want something that is fulfilling and honoring of you and the life you want to build and so on and so forth. And that's all possible for you. But you have to be able to, again, put your money where your mouth is. And if you need the support, get the support. If you need to, the help, get the help. If you need to do the healing work, do the healing work. If you need to grow, you got to grow, right? Nothing changes if nothing changes. Everything that you want for yourself at a deep level. And because I feel like for pile 4, you don't even know yet, because I think, again, right, some of these programs and patterns are still operating and you're not fully clear yet on why things haven't worked out for you or why you continue to have these relationships that burn you or don't really serve you as much as you serve them, and so on and so forth. It's a long-standing pattern. It feels like a lot of these were set in motion in childhood with your authority figures and caregivers that maybe took a lot from you and didn't offer anything to you, that could have been dysfunctional, chaotic, hostile, even abusive. All of that to say, you might not even recognize all these pieces and all these variables, and that's why the reading is here. But what you do recognize is you're not happy. What you do recognize is you're not fulfilled. What you do recognize is you can't manage to get into a relationship that is deeply soul fulfilling and everything that you know, even though you don't know in your mind, you know it's possible in your heart, and people know it when they know it, right? When you know, and it's like you would know it if that match or that person or that connection came into your life. Now, this doesn't have to be romantic. For a lot of you it is, but I think that for a lot of you in general, you struggle in relationships. You tend to have fair weather friends or family members who turn their back on you or only want it to be a one-way street, give to them but don't give to you. Romantic relationships that turn out to be toxic, if not worse. And so I feel like you have this history of those kinds of relationships. And you know that even though you may not know exactly what you want, you know when you're not happy, you know when you are. You know when you're fulfilled, and you know when you're not. But it's saying that fulfillment and happiness is available to you, but it's ultimately going to be up to you to make that choice that you not only want more, but are going to actively pursue it, and that you're not settling for less. And that's going to require for you to show up for you pretty darn well. When you say you want a high quality relationship, it's not going to be a one-night stand. It's not going to be the guy you bring home from the bar. More than likely, it could be in some cases. And these are just random examples. They don't have to apply to you, so you have to apply it to your own circumstances. It might not be the person that your cousin Sally, who you've never trusted, who she introduces you to for a blind date. I'm just giving really random examples, but the point of all of that is being, very clear and honest with yourself, so you can take full responsibility to make wise choices when it comes to relationships, so that they can serve you and serve them. But up until now, you have felt that they haven't served you, and for some of you, you've done a lot of the giving, but haven't done a whole lot of receiving, and you're like, what the heck? And it's because of who you're choosing ultimately. And again, who are you choosing, or why are you choosing that kind of person? Because it's also actually a reflection of where you're at. You haven't fully owned that you're choosing from a place of a lack of worthiness, or because of whatever happened as a template in your childhood. So if you didn't know, how could you change it? But you know now, because you know you're unhappy. So then you come to this reading, you're like, oh, the secret of my subconscious. Who am I really? What is the block? What's holding me back? It's this relationship blueprint or foundation of unhealthy dynamics, of very egoic driven dynamics, of what's in it for me, or what can I take as opposed to what can I give. But sometimes it's not even just the relationship, it's also the template of a person. Like, if they tend to be, again, someone who's operating primarily in their coping and defense mechanisms, and everything's a fight or a conflict or a reason to push away, or avoidance, or everything's a reason to become codependent, and you grasp on tight, you become really clingy and needy, it's going to be really difficult to create healthy relationships from that place. And so that's what wants to be shifted, these old, unhealthy, dysfunctional relating patterns. But ultimately, what does it have to do with, of course, self-love, right? So yeah, there's something about getting to know yourself very deeply, getting to know what you want, recognizing that, and again, not settling, because she feels she knows. Meaning, we all, even though we say we don't know, we do kind of know. Like, this person probably isn't the best for me, or maybe this isn't the right thing, or maybe I didn't make the right choice, or maybe this person probably isn't the best choice for me. Whatever, right? We all do have that little whisper, the inner nudge, the inner niggle, and most of the time what happens, we ignore it. That's the God's honest truth. We ignore it because the sex is good, or because I'm lonely, or because I need someone to Netflix and chill with, or whatever. We have our excuses and our reasons. Do what you want to do, right? That's up to you. There's no judgment here. What it is, though, if you're saying you want something else, and you want fulfillment and connection, and you don't want to be lonely anymore, and you don't want to have all these toxic partners or people who are just wannabes, basically just a random nobody, and you want someone who's really going to meet you and be your equal, you're going to have to start listening to yourself, to your deepest truth, your deepest self. The part of you because the part of you that acts out and plays out those relating patterns from childhood, that's how it's manifesting. But the deeper part of you is this inner child that just wants to love and be loved, that wants to deeply commune and connect with someone, that wants to be held, nurtured, cradled, that wants to love, right? So it's like recognizing too the deeper root of some of these patterns, that they come down to that inner child within you, and that not only, yes, does it point to the pains in your life, right? So you might have these defense mechanisms that tell you that maybe, you need to start looking at this for transformation, or defense mechanisms, or toxic partners. You start seeing the upper manifestation of it, right? You see the top layer. But if you go a little bit deeper, you recognize it's something else, or you recognize, oh, this is from caregivers, this is from childhood, family of origin, and you go a little bit deeper, and then you see, oh, there's this child that's throwing a tantrum because it just wants to be loved, then you go a little bit deeper, and it's like, ultimately this child just wants to be loved, wants to love. So seeing these upper manifestations for what they really are, connecting them to the true dot, the true root that's brought about all of this, and coming into a place of greater union with self, connection with self, loving of self. Because when you can get to that place of also supporting your inner child, whatever it is that they need, right? They don't want more toxicity. They don't want more unhealthy dynamics. They don't want more of the cling, needy, pursue at all costs, martyrdom and sacrifice, but they also don't want escape, avoidance, keep everyone at bay, keep everyone away at a 10-foot pole. They don't want all of that. They don't want any of it. I mean, it's that's how it shows up. But in truth, they just want to love and be loved, right? That's the ultimate truth. And so you showing up to honor that, you showing up to show that part of yourself, or your inner child, or yourself even, that we can have healthy, loving, fulfilling relationships. But I have to be the one to take control. I got to be the one to take back the reins. I have to be the one who makes the healing decisions, makes the healthy choices, chooses healthier relating patterns, takes responsibility, gets the help if I need it, and continues to love myself enough to put in the work to experience what it is I deserve and desire. I love myself enough to put in the work to do what it is I desire, and to experience what it is I desire. Okay, you love yourself enough to do the work. Yeah, so ultimately, you are able to find a greater healing within yourself. Let me see the timing here. You're able to find a greater healing in yourself. I do want to pull through your journeying, through your self-discovery, through this healing, through this liberation. I think it's already underway. It's happening now. But you're able to really uncover, discover what it is you truly deeply want. You're able to discover like what it is that you truly want in a partner. You know, what really resonates for you, what lands for you, what does not at all. You're just able to gain a much deeper, more intimate understanding with yourself, your desires, and what you seek in partnership and relationship. What you want to give, what you yearn to give, what you're not willing to give, what you're not going to hand over or sacrifice. You get very clear on your lines in the sand. You get very clear on what you want from another person, how they're going to add to your life, how you're going to build and create together, that they're aligned with your greater vision for yourself, whatever that is. But you ultimately discover, it's a self-discovery journey that you're going to go on if you're not already underway. I think many of you are. And so you're kind of uncovering all those layers and pieces and seeing how this wounded inner child was feeding these really unhealthy or dysfunctional patterns where you just got burned, disappointment, loss, isolation, loneliness, push everyone away, forget about it, move out like Tom Hanks onto a deserted island. And then you're like, hey, wait, well, this isn't fun either. I want something else. I want something. Like, this isn't as great as I thought it would be. And so you're doing the work now. Now, what happens as a result, though, is connections, community, soul tribe. And again, earlier we talked about this could have to do with romantic relationships, but we've also found so far in card pile 4, it wasn't just romantic relationships. We already said that earlier. We said that for some of you, or for many of you, or if not all, that this was a lacking, there was a general lack in the quality of your relationships. There was a general lack in the quality of your relationships, whether it was platonic, whether it was professional, whether it was romantic. You tended to find that you never quite had your needs met in relationship, or it was always an imbalance. One person was getting more than they were receiving and receiving more than they were getting, or again, it was toxic, unhealthy, dysfunctional. No matter which way you turned, you seemed like you really couldn't find anybody and there was really nobody there. And so we talked about what has led to this, what has brought about this result in your life, and now you're taking back the reins to make a new choice, and you're willing to do the work to connect with like-minded, like-hearted souls. Again, this feels like an abundance of relationships if you so desire. It feels like friends, it feels like neighbors, it feels like family, it feels like a soul tribe, it feels like community, it feels like coming together and building connections. It feels like, you know, dinner at a friend's house or at yours. It feels like laughs around the fire pit. It feels like barbecues. It feels like attending each other's weddings, funerals. Not that they would pass, but I'm saying like their families' funerals, with being close enough to where you're actually sharing lives with other people. There's celebration here, there's joy, there's success, there's fulfillment, and there is a message here for you, card pile 4, that's actually pretty deep, and I didn't expect this message, that's like, life is better when done together. Life is better when done together. That's what you're learning through this trial, this experience, this challenge, whatever it is you've been going through this season of your life, or this relating pattern, or whatever it is that's landed most for you during this reading. You're recognizing that life is better when done together. Life is fuller, it's richer, it's more thrilling, it's exciting, it's loving. It's just better when done together. And that's what you end up discovering from this. That's the gem, ultimately, that you are able to take away from this journey for yourself, from this self-discovery, through this whole life or decades, or at least a recent season, but it feels like lifelong, of relationships that just didn't quite make the cut, didn't quite do it for you, certainly didn't hit the sweet spot, were never quite fulfilling. You thought, well, gosh, this is pointless. What's the point then? Forget about it. You kind of give up on everybody and everything and humanity. What's the point? And through your healing work, through your self-love, through your inner child work, through recognizing your deeper desires, through these true partnerships and companion, doing the healing work, making the choices, making conscious choices about who you surround yourself with, who you choose to engage with, maintaining those standards, all that stuff we talked about, you discover this. You discover circles of friends, of loved ones, of family, of soul tribe that will really light you up. You have that reciprocity, that mutual connection, mutual fulfillment, and mutual exchange that's found in true, genuine community. So that's your reading, card pile 4. That was your secrets of your subconscious. It was about disconnecting and isolating yourself from relationships as a result of previous relating patterns or relationship patterns that never tended to work out, that just never really fulfilled you, and so you might have given up, and or you've just found yourself in a series of relationship failures, wondering, gosh, what the heck happened? This is what it is. This is where it came from. This is the work you need to do, and you do get that harvest of love, of loving, fulfilling relationships as a result. So thank you, card pile 4. If this landed for you, I encourage you to like, to subscribe, to share, to support this channel. I also want to let you know, as always, I do offer personal readings as well as coaching programs to support you in your life, in your work, and on your spiritual path. And I do have an amazing program out right now called Spirit Woman. It's a year-long coaching community to nurture your true nature and your highest potential. You can find out those details below or at airtgreen.com/spiritwoman. Thank you, card pile 4.